I want to talk about in the power of one more.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, let me just say something, okay? This is the clean version. My original version is marked up. There's like thousands of highlights, notes, all the things in there. And so this is the printed last night with just, I don't know how many markers in here.
Thank you.
But on page 38, you say, few things are more expensive than opportunities you miss. You pay for them with regret, doubt, and a lingering haunting feeling of what could have been. Whew. So my question, has there been a moment in your journey that you should have stepped into one more, but you failed to do so? And what did you learn from that?
Tons. Yeah, there's a lot. That's the good news is there's redemption too if you keep pursuing the one mores. I can tell you one where I should have fixed something I did. So I always tell you vulnerable stuff. My son was a golfer, or is a golfer, but was when he was young, and he had done something in a golf course that I thought he should have made a different decision, and I couldn't believe I did this. But when he was done playing, I let him know it really aggressively. Like, I remember what it was too. I said, I cannot believe you hit a 3-wood there with the lake in front of the green. What the heck were you thinking? And I start railing into my son, who's just trying to make me proud of him golfing. Yeah. And I rail into him, and like every mistake you make as a parent, you just like, that's the biggest mistakes of your life. Like, I should have handled that differently. And anyway, this may seem super small, but it's massive to me. And so it was a Sunday, and I had to go on a business trip that night. And I had the opportunity to walk in his room before I left and to fix it and to say, I'm sorry. That's not how your daddy should talk to you. I'm so proud of you. I love you. I know you were trying your best. I can't even talk about this right now because I'm so mortified by me. And I was still mad at him. I think he was 11. How ridiculous. And I left on the business trip. And I was gone a week. And he mentioned to his mom every morning that I said that to him. And it just festered in him for a week. And that was one more opportunity for me to go in and say, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. And I wasn't man enough to do it. And that's a huge regret in my life. It seems really small because I know that little incident, even though I fixed it eventually, stays in there. It stays in there. And that was a huge mistake of mine. So I regret that I did that. And there's a bunch of business ones or major deals I didn't do or something I didn't invest in. There's lots like that. But I don't really care about all that stuff. I care about my son. And so there's been a couple instances like that in my life where I'm like, you should have apologized. So the one mores I regret most are the times where I didn't say I was wrong. Not decisions I didn't make or, business deals I didn't pursue. Of course, there's things like that. But it's where I was like, I didn't have the humility in the moment to go, wait a minute, I could have actually fixed it in the car. I knew I was wrong right when I did it. We've all done this as a parent, haven't we? As a parent, you're like, I know what I'm saying, or to a spouse. I know right now this is wrong. And out of pride or ego or whatever it is, we don't fix it in the moment. I should have, right when the words left my mouth, I knew I should. I saw his little face change. I saw his face change. And I should have went, oh my gosh, Daddy is so wrong. Let me pull the car over. Come here. Sit on my lap. I love you. Daddy is totally wrong right now. You are trying so hard out there. I have no idea why I talk to you like that. I'm so sorry. Do you hear me? I love you. I love you. You're amazing. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it then. I didn't do it before I left. And it took me a week until I got back to fix it. Well, that sat in my son for a week. That poison I gave him, right? So I'm telling you all kinds of stuff today that I don't normally say. But right when you asked me that stood out to me. Number one time as a dad, I was like, that was terrible.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah. Well, it's relatable and really powerful. Right when you said it, I'm like, yep, or your spouse, or right away.
That one stood up.
All right, so this is a really big, oh my gosh. Ed, I could talk about the chapters in this book for like 500 shows, but chapter 7, One More Dream. You talk about, this is page 91, entering your dream state. So you say the happiest people in life operate out of their imaginations and dreams and not their histories.
Yep.
Can you just talk about imagination and this dimension of dream state, and also like how does it apply to your own creative process, because I think people will find this fascinating.
Yep.
A lot of questions, and a lot of people DM me about what's Ed's creative process. You know,
My creative process is I'm a dreamer. So this we're not going to get into stuff I am good at. So most people, I'll repeat this again, operate out of their history and their memory, not their imagination and their dreams. So they're constantly replaying patterns and thoughts and emotions from the past that regenerate themselves, limiting beliefs about themselves. Whereas in my case, I do that, but I'm really, really good at imagination. Dreaming is one thing. So people say all the time, well, I dream at night. I dream in the daytime, and I dream a lot. And dreaming is a muscle. So I am in dream mode a lot of the time. I'm driving in the car. I bet you're this way too, Jamie. I'm just dreaming and envisioning my life often, the future, the things I want to do. It's a muscle I built. It's habitual. Also being habitual is rear view mirror, replaying some situation you regret, replaying an emotion you don't want. That's habitual, a memory over and over and over again. The reason it's so emotional for me to talk about the stuff with my dad is that I truly do spend most of my time in the dream, in the imagination, in the future, being present, operating in the present, imagining the future. I don't spend most of my time, living back in my memories and my history. Even though I know there's an unconscious program running in there, I don't stay back there a lot. I don't stay back there in previous achievements or previous failures. So lucid dreaming is a muscle, and imagination is different. Imagination is something you had an abundance of when you were a child. It's why you were happier as a child, in my belief system, for two reasons. One, your proximity to God was just a few years ago. Okay, so you were closer to God many years ago, so you were happier and more joyous. And two, your imagination was flourishing as a child. And the world, your parents, school teachers started to suppress it. This is what's important. Read history, do math, be a good girl, stop dreaming, sit in your chair, write those spelling words down, whatever it is. And over time, we get to a certain age, like we don't imagine at all anymore, or very little. What percentage of your time when you were 7 were you in imagination mode? And what percentage of your time at this current age are you imagining? Dreaming, imagining, envisioning. And so for me, imagination is where the topics come from, the speeches come from, what I teach comes from imagination. If I'm in history, nothing bothers me more than to watch a speaker or a coach repeat themselves from 4 years ago. I already got that one, man. I already got that one, lady. You said that 20 years ago. A little bit of that's okay, but I always feel like if I'm not showing up new and different, my values diminish because you already had that version of me. So this imagination and dreaming. Now, by the way, I have friends that are too, hey, look at this. How about this thought? How about this place? How about this charity? How about this? You and I were doing it last night on the phone together. We're imagining and dreaming. It's the best state. It's when we're the most alive. When we're in history and memory, we're literally dying. Because you're either growing or dying as a human being. It's just a fact. And so you've got to begin to dream. Lucid dreams in the daytime. I have a part of the book that's be a possibility, an impossibility thinker and achiever. Like, start to just let it go. Let the imagination go. Like, if there weren't barriers, if there weren't obstacles, if you didn't have anything holding you back, what would you be imagining? What would you be dreaming? Where would you be going? By the way, it's a great place to go. History and memory is like some fabrication most of the time anyway, or a sad place. So where you're going is awesome. Most people give themselves zero gift of imagination and dreaming, or they only do it when they sleep.
Right.
And when you're asleep, you're not always in control of what that dream is.
Yeah.
But when you're awake, you can direct the dream. And dreams, to me, are a form of prayer. You want to go to vibrational frequency? There's an energy to a dream. A thought has energy. A dream has energy. An imagination has energy. You are literally beginning to create something out of nothing when you imagine and dream it. When you have a thought or an imagination or a dream of something, you actually create a space that exists in time that didn't exist before the imagination or the dream. And so now that space exists, your subconscious, unconscious mind, your reticular activating system, which is chapter 2 in the book, starts to try to furnish the space. It starts trying to put the people, places, and things in this space that you just created that didn't exist the minute before you had the thought or the dream. So you're creating new spaces in your life constantly when you imagine and dream. If I could get anything across, I'm so glad you brought this chapter up. Humans need to begin to imagine it. Think about people you admire. You admire Oprah Winfrey, right? I admire Dr. Martin Luther King. I also admire Oprah. But most of the people that you admire, they're dreamers. They got big imaginations. The people that you really look up to, you look up to some, political person or actor, entertainer, or somebody that they got a vivid imagination. They're a vivid dreamer. My hero literally is famous for saying, I have a dream. Come on, man. I mean, that's incredible. So that's the part of life where all the juices. You can hear even my energy change when we talk about this topic. It's where you're the most alive, and it's where you're supposed to be is dreaming. Dreaming in the future, operating in the present.
It is so powerful. And just say that when you dream, right, daydream or dream a dream, that your reticular activating system goes to furnish
Absolutely.
That space.
Yes. So
true. I'm just thinking of so many times in my life that's happened,
Yes.
but I'm imagining so many people listening to us right now. They're like, oh gosh, I got to start dreaming. Like,
it's
what
free.
have I been doing? It's free.
It's free.
It's free.
It's the highest form of entertainment, and it's completely free, and it's the best thing you could ever give your soul and your spirit and yourself to change your life, and there's no cost to it.
That's beautiful. Life-changing for a lot of people
Yeah,
today.
I hope
even just starting it, baby steps even.
I hope so.
And you talk about, I have two really fun rounds that I want to do before I close. But one thing I want to say, Ed, that I think is really unique to you. And I know that you haven't always been this way, and maybe it's part of your own growth, but I feel like you do something I rarely ever see done publicly, and that's that you are not afraid to show vulnerability. You're not afraid to show sort of these beautiful, what would normally look like contrasting things. And what I mean by that is you're this dude with muscles, and then you're like narrating your two Pomeranians' day, Daisy and Lily, right? You are, you're setting the stadium like on fire. People just their lives are being so impacted, and then you're also very introverted. You know what I mean? There's kind of this contrast. You do it so well, I think, even with, sharing real direct, very direct, confident statements or tools or tips. But then you'll share how, you're not feeling so well, and this is happening. It's sort of this contrast of showing all sides of you. And I'm just wondering how you got to that place, because a lot of people are scared. They show up not just on social media, but in their day-to-day lives as part of who they are, but not as all of who they are. How did you get to this place of showing up and with a confidence as all of who you are?
Great question. Most people are pretty complex, and I am. I mean, there's a lot of simple things about me, but I'm a pretty complicated person in that sense. Like I am really, really intense, and then I'm hopefully, pretty kind person. I think that I do it because I just got tired of trying to pretend I was perfect. I just got tired of it. Like, I want people to have hope, not idolization. And so I want people to go, hey, if this guy...
Hold on. Yeah. You want people to have hope, not idolization.
Right.
How many people out there right now are just, that's not their priority? That is huge, Ed, what you just said.
Thank you. And the people that were my idols, once I met them, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here, right? So I want people to go, hey, this is a flawed, imperfect person, which we all are. And man, I'm watching this guy fight to really change who he is and get better and grow. And he's obviously learned a lot of tools for doing it. In fact, the reason that I'm so into personal development, self-improvement, self-confidence, all these other things is for me to just become a baseline functioning person, I had to have these tools. And then when I got to baseline, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we could take this further and actually be, happier and successful. So I want to show that. I want to be able to not show. It's not even showing. It really isn't. It's just like, here it is. Yeah. I'm not conscious like I'm going to show. I'm just like, this is me. Like, I'm a really intense dude. I love to compete, but I really love people. And also, I think over time, as we age, we change. I think, the 25-year-old me probably would be totally unwilling. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I think a lot of people would tell you even then I was that way. But maybe I'm a little bit more unafraid to just say, hey, listen, I have fears and insecurities, and I made this mistake with my son, and, I love God, and I love my dad, and, I have fears, and I think that hopefully by hearing those things, you go, well, man, if he could do it, I could do it. This is not some perfect person. He's got it all figured out. I'll just say this, I've got some things figured out, and that's better than I used to be. And if I could give you what I know, maybe I could save you a bunch of time, a bunch of mistakes I made, speed up your happiness and success through all the mistakes I've made. So I also love people like you, and this is where all this kind of comes together. I love really confident people who have a ton of humility. And I don't love confident people who don't have humility, and I'm not really interested in being around a bunch of humble people who have no self-confidence. Self-confident people who have humility are curious. They want to learn, they want to grow. Self-confident person without that, they're hard to be around. You know this. And they eventually probably make a mistake or burn out or whatever. And then our humble friends who we love so much, they're just hard to take through life with you if they have no self-confidence. It's like, come on, you can do it, let's go. And so I love people who tread that nuance really well. You do that as well as anybody I've ever met before. Like, there's this strength of a woman in there. Like, there's this, and I've watched you defend me in different situations. Like there's this really strong, confident woman who knows who she is, but so humble, so much humility that she still has this other part of her that's, and also wants to learn, wants to grow, values other people, right? Like, humility is, I think, sometimes just the value of other people. And when you have all this self-confidence and no humility, it's like, are you the most important person? Yeah. So hopefully over time I've nuanced that pretty well.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, even when you're doing animal voices on your, I think it's beautiful because I think people at home are like, oh, I do that too. And I think it's just this beautiful kind of like showing all sides. And, I want to say it's obviously no accident. Millions and millions of people connect with you, your shows. And you are one of the few people who does a really good job at showing both sides of things. You'll have somebody, talk about politics, you'll have somebody extremely left one day and the next day someone extremely right.
Yeah.
You'll show both sides of everything, never even sharing where you're at. And you, I've always felt this, and this has always kind of just been dumbfounding to me that I feel like the quickest way to get dull in life is to only surround yourself with people that think the way you do.
Yes.
Right? And so many people only surround themselves with people who think the way that they do.
Oh, that's the thing to do now, isn't it?
It is right now.
You only be around people who share your political beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your life beliefs. You know what's really the truth, and you know this, you ain't learning very much from them. You very rarely learn anything from anybody who completely agrees with you on everything.
Yeah.
And even in your companies, you know this, when we're building the company, I want people who disagree with me. I want people who challenge me. I want people with a diverse background. I want people who come at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And so I have lots, as you know, and so do you, and we laugh about some of our mutual friends that disagree with stuff with each other. My dad and I disagreed on a lot of stuff. One of the most interesting, fascinating things about my dad was we didn't agree on political things all the time. We certainly didn't agree on religious things all the time. Our outlook on all kinds of stuff was very different. To say that my dad and I are the same person in that regard isn't true. My favorite person, an adult person in my life is my dad, and me and him disagreed on lots of stuff. And I learned lots of stuff. And some of the things over time, I do think more like him again. But I don't want people around me all the time who agree with me, and I don't want people all the time around me that just agree with everything I think. How boring. You're right. No, you're right. No, you're right. Oh, we're both right.
We're both right.
Isn't this crazy? And they're so this,
It's
and they're
destiny.
so that. And it is so our culture now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so our culture. And and every facet is trying to put us in these camps. Like, you're over there. You're one of those. You're one of those. I'm one of these. And man, that is absolutely not how this thing's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% counter to how the world is supposed to work. I promise you, of all the things we talked about today, I'm the most sure of what I'm telling you right now, that we are supposed to be different. There's supposed to be diversity of thought, of behavior, of background, of culture, of religion, of ethnicity. The diversity in our world is the strength of this world. And if there was ever a leader who rose up and said, I'm embracing that, and I'm not even going to let you play your game where you're pitted against one another.
Yeah.
Oh man, would we change the world?
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I know you are paid to counsel country leaders, which I won't go into that. But what I will ask you on what you just said is maybe the billion-dollar question of the day.
Yeah.
Will you ever run for office?
Oh, yeah. Probably not. Probably not. I'm not going to say I never would. If I thought doing that would make a bigger difference in the world, or I could be utilized to make a bigger difference, if that time ever arose, I would do it. But I don't think that time will arise. I think my platform and the freedom of that platform probably allows me to make a bigger contribution and a bigger difference anyway. And the truth is, in the way that the political world works right now, I'm not so sure that I fit in anywhere specifically. So I doubt that that's the case. What's that?
Maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe that is a good thing. So I would say I'd say don't hold your breath on that one. You never know. You never say never. But right now, definitely, I can tell you this. For one more day, I'm definitely not. That I know.
All right. Page 189 on the book.
Okay.
In the book, The Power of One More, one of my favorite quotes in the whole book.
Okay.
Dare to challenge yourself to make history. How will Ed Milet make history?
Wow. Come on, Jamie. These are good questions. I'll make history, if I ever make history. If I make history, it will be by leveraging the beautiful talents and skills and backgrounds of other people. It wouldn't be me. It would be my ability to gather people who could do something collectively great together. I'm a really big believer in the collective soul, the collective mind, more than I am one person doing something. And I think that's another part of our culture that's gotten really skewed as well. So if I'm going to make history, it will be like what my dad did. It'll just be by helping one person at a time. And with their life, be happier or more successful, or be more seen, or achieve their potential. And I will do that by gathering the skills and talents of a lot of other people. And when I say do something historic in your life, what I mean by saying that to you is that you should have a sense of the historic, meaning you are making history. Your life is being documented. There's a book being written about you. If you're a person of faith like you and I, we know that there's an accounting, there's a book of our life happening. Even if you don't believe any of that stuff, someone's probably paying attention somewhere, right? So at some point, if your great-grandchildren came along and read the book of your life, if it ended right now, if the final chapter were right now on the book of you, would you be satisfied with the totality of that book? Have all the best chapters been written, or are there better ones to write? And if there are better ones to write, what are you doing to write them better? What book, what resource, what podcast, what friends, what decision, what one more emotion, what one more thought are you looking for to write the best chapters of your life? And the good news about this book of you is it's not over if you're listening to this. The other good news is there's two co-authors, you and God. And any chance you want, you can write a new chapter. You can be a whole new character. You can flip the script. Like I did at some point. You just decide to step in and write the best chapters of your life. At any point, you as the author of this, the chapters don't have to repeat themselves. But right now, if your great-grandkids came along and read that book, would they pick it up and go, wow, look at that moment, like I would with my dad. Look at that family he helped. Look at that person he helped. Quietly, look at that change. Look how he lived those 15 years of his son's life, and then look at the next part. Or in your life, would the chapters just start kind of running together? At some point, one chapter look like the other, and they go, this is a little bit boring. And would they put the book down? Would they be inspired? Because there's four types of people. There's unmotivated, then there's motivated people, which are wonderful. They're driven by motives. I want to achieve this to get that. Then there's inspirational people. These are people who are moved in spirit, right? Those are amazing human beings. They move people with energy and spirit. Then there's the highest level, which is aspirational, where people aspire to be more like you, aspire to be like you. When someone read your book right now, would they say you were unmotivated, motivated, inspirational, or how about aspirational? That eventually when your great-grandkids read that book of your life, they go, I want to be more like grandma or great-grandma. She was courageous. She helped people. She grew. She took risks. She changed. She loved people. She cared about people. She was special. Just like my sister who's the school teacher, or just like her brother me in different ways. That book of your life, you're the author of, and it's supposed to be a masterpiece. And you can get to writing the best chapters now, right now, and my dad proved it. First 35 years or so of his life, one way, the second half, magnificent.
Well, on the topic of your book, I just want to be a friend one more time.
How has serving people helped you? It's not in any of the things we were going to talk about, but, you know, probably more than anybody you know, and certainly in your case more than anybody I know, like we're really doing whatever this is we're doing for service for you and I. Neither one of us financially have a need to do it. I gave away all the proceeds from my book. You're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
How is service to other people changed your life or created more bliss in your own life? I just want to know that, because for me, I feel the most worthy oftentimes in my life when I'm in the service of somebody else.
Yes.
You know, I actually feel worthy. I don't always feel worthy that I'm capable of doing it. But when I'm in the effort and attempt to serve somebody, I feel more connected with my own worth when I'm serving another person.
Yeah. So, you know, in the book Worthy, there's a whole chapter on fulfillment, right? And first of all, self-worth is the most critical piece, because you can do everything right. You can have self-confidence, you can be growing, you can be contributing and serving. But if you don't have self-worth, you're never going to feel truly fulfilled. So you have to have self-worth, which of course the book's packed with how do you build that, right? But then you also need self-confidence, and you also need growth. You need to be growing, stretching, like in some area of your life. And it could be simple things like growing in your faith or growing in your golf game, right? It doesn't matter what it is. You have to be growing to feel fulfilled, but you also have to be contributing, meaning doing something bigger than yourself. And a lot of people miss that. They think, oh, if I just make enough money, if I just have enough people love me on social media, if I just whatever it might be, if you are not contributing, you'll never feel that deep source of purpose and fulfillment. And two big ways on how, like, well, how do I contribute? I have nothing to offer. So many people think that, right? And you and I have a friend, Rory, that always talks about how we're best positioned to serve the person we once were. And another way to put that is, so often the pain we've gone through, the setbacks, the things that sucked, right? It's like when we're able to then use those and help other people make it through the things we've gotten through. It brings a deep sense of purpose and also understanding of the cadence of the calling of our life and everything we've gone through. But also there's simple ways to give back. I mean, literally just smiling at a neighbor. I mean, it is that simple. There are people, so many people, I'm going to cry if I think about this and talk about this, but so many of us, if you make eye contact, and Ed, you're one of the best people I've ever met at this. I feel like it's why we're such good friends, because we both see this in other people. You're one of the best people I've ever met at seeing other people, like truly seeing other people.
Let's just be real. We both know you're the best at that.
You're amazing at it. And anyone who wants to go, how do I serve? You know how you serve? Walk into the coffee shop or wherever you're at and see someone. Actually see somebody and just say hi, or how are you? Or, you know, I almost guarantee you I'm going to cry. I almost guarantee you for so many people, if you walk into any room you're in today in your life and you actually just see somebody, you're probably going to be the only person that day that sees them.
You're so brilliant. You're so brilliant. So where I started practicing this was in places like coffee shops, because I didn't feel worthy to do it in like business environments. So I actually practiced it like in grocery stores and coffee shops, and I recommend everybody do it. And so let's just say you went to order your coffee and the barista's there. Hey, what can I get you? Welcome. And you just take a second and there's a pause. I do this now as who I am, but at first I had to practice. And so I would let them pause and I'd go, hey, how are you? And I'll just take a second. How are you today? And you look at them and you hold the glance and actually wait for them to answer you. They feel that energy. And the first few times I did it, it was awkward. And then I went, wow, I get the added bonus to my coffee today. I connected with this human being.
Yes.
And as I'm walking out, I felt better. I know they felt better, but I felt better. What I didn't know until I read your book is I actually felt a little bit more worthy. And then when I went into business meetings, I had a little bit more of the worthy bucket filled up because I did exactly in the exact environment. You go to a cashier at a grocery store. How are you today? And you actually listen and say it a little slower. Hey, how are you? That's not the same thing as how are you? And they feel you actually want to know and you care. Slowing your life down like that. You're like, what's that got to do with business? I don't know. best person I know at doing that is you. You said I'm the best person you know at doing that is me. And we're two of the richest people in this entire space. So there's some correlative property to it to business as well, right? There's got to be.
And two things happen. You see that other person. So now all of a sudden you're in service to something bigger than yourself. But when you see that other person and they realize it, they then see you.
Yes.
The moment they realize you saw them is the moment they see you. When you actually see someone else and in that moment they realize it and then they see you, you actually feel seen. And here's something that is so powerful and profound and huge when we realize we do this in our lives. Is so many of us, and I'm talking about no matter where you're at in your career or your goals or your ambitions or the version of success in your life that the world celebrates, right? Whether it's having the kids and the whatever it is, no matter where you're at in that, like we are so tempted always to actually still live our lives hiding in plain sight. Never actually showing who we truly are, never actually allowing our true self to be seen, right? Just showing up with the parts of us that the world celebrates. And we start creating barriers of disconnection in our lives. But more than that, right? And we wonder why we're not fulfilled in relationships. But more than that is we create a barrier of disconnection with ourselves. We don't actually see ourselves. And just to give this analogy, for everyone listening, right? For you, for me, for everyone watching us, is maybe you remember the moment as like a little kid in class, and think back to when you were a little kid, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the very first moment when you knew the answer, but you decided for the first time ever not to raise your hand because you thought, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I get made fun of? What if I no longer belong after I do that? And that is the for so many people, the moment that self-doubt starts to set in, the moment we become aware of these things, the moment we start to shrink our self-worth and our self-confidence. And so that moment we start hiding in plain sight. And then what does that look like today as an adult? For a lot of people, it looks like, oh, you're on a Zoom meeting with your team and you have an idea, but you don't raise your hand. You don't share it, just in case it sucks, right? It looks like, oh, you're the boss and maybe you're crushing it and you're hitting numbers every single quarter, but you actually have some novel ideas to innovate and move your company or your industry forward, but you're not going to do them because you're scared to take a risk, right? Because you're crushing it now. That is hiding in plain sight. It looks like maybe you're the extrovert that walks into the room and can entertain everyone else, but no one actually knows what you're really dealing with.
Yes.
Right? You're hiding in plain sight.
That's the most profound thing. You said that the other day. I do feel like people hide in plain sight.
Yep.
By the way, ask yourself, am I doing that?
Yeah.
Am I playing small? Am I shrinking? Do I not raise the proverbial hand in so many moments in my life when I could step forward and take my power?
And to add to that too, Ed, is when you ask yourself this, right? What are the ways you're hiding in plain sight in your life? And it might be in work. It might be in your romantic relationship. It might be in your friendships. Do you know how many people feel like they've got to play a part to fit into a friend group? But then they feel lonely because those friends actually don't know them for who they truly are. There's so many ways we're hiding in plain sight so often in our lives. And the most important thing you can do is not just identify it. And I take you through so many exercises on how to do this in Worthy, in the book coming out, which you can pre-order now and get a special live Zoom with Ed and me if you do it.
Worthybook.com/Ed. Okay.
That's right. And it's going to go away. So do it now. But I go deep in this because the most important thing is not just to identify in your life all the ways you're hiding in plain sight, all the ways that self-doubt is impacting your life, but then to identify what does hiding in plain sight already cost you in your life? Yeah. What does it cost you in your goals and dreams? What does it cost you in the depth of connection you have in your relationships and in your friendships, right? What does it cost you? Mm-hmm. And then when you really go through the work of going, what will it cost you 5, 10 years from now if you don't change? And you start really opening your eyes. We're always wired as human beings to avoid pain. And when you really do the work here and you understand what it's going to cost you, what it has cost you, what it will cost you, that pain will be greater. than the pain of, you know what? I might get rejected. I might lose some friends. I might be embarrassed. People might not get me, but I'm not going to hide anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up and I'm going to be seen. Like not just the parts of me I think I need to be, but like the true parts of me. I am so blessed to have friends like you who sharpen me all the time. That is so, so, so important. And also, you don't need to hold out for a hero in order to go after your dreams. You don't need it. It's an excuse. It's a lie. It is an indication of unworthiness to believe that we need somebody else before we're enough. Or once that, person shows up and I'm married, then I'll be enough. Once I have kids in my life, then I'll be enough. Once I get that dream mentor, then my business will take off. All of it is a lie. It's a lie that leads to self-doubt. And it's why I wrote this book, because it's packed with truths that wake up worthiness. Because when you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams in life, you always will plateau at the level of your self-worth.
Yes.
And when you get that right, it changes everything. And by the way, I'm getting so fired up, not to like go into the personal growth world or anything, but so what I realized is like so much of the work you hear thought leaders doing around overcoming limiting beliefs, you might have a limiting belief that you'll never make a lot of money, or you're too young or too old, or whatever it might be. You can do all the work of overcoming those limiting beliefs. But if you do not do the work on overcoming the limiting beliefs about worthiness, it does not matter, because you can accomplish everything again and go, okay, I believe I'm smart enough now. I believe all the things. Those are building your self-confidence. If you don't do that innate work of building your worthiness, then you'll sabotage all the stuff that you bring into your life.
Why I brought up Oprah was because I think when people are watching you, you've kind of come out of nowhere in terms of the thought leadership space, which is amazing. Like a year ago, people didn't really know who you were necessarily outside of the beauty industry. And now like she's everywhere, which is fantastic. But like authenticity is the word that just keeps coming up over and over and over again. And your courage, your willingness to bear it all and share your story. It's what I think of what you did in the beauty industry reminds me of what Oprah would have done if she was in the beauty industry. There's like that through line of, I guess, still what would Oprah do? So I just thought it was curious that she was your kind of hero, or one of your heroes growing up, and sitting there in the car thinking about the color purple. Does that resonate? Like, I think if Oprah was going to go sell makeup, she would have it be the every woman on the show, not just the fancy models.
Yeah, and I think that her whole life is about authenticity. One of the things, absolutely, it resonates. Yeah, thank you, by the way, for saying that. That's like the biggest compliment in the world. And, the whole personal growth space. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, I was a waitress at Denny's, and I would save my tip money at Denny's to buy Tony Robbins' personal power tapes and attend my first ever seminar. And I've always loved and believed, like it helped me then believe that where I come from doesn't have to determine where I'm going. And I just feel like I'm a lifetime student with everyone else. And, I went through a decade of starting a business with nothing and going through years and years of rejection, and then figuring out how to turn every no that I faced, how to not take those no's personal. And there were some personal no's, but how to not take them personal, how to turn them into yeses, and went through the process of building a team of over 1,000 people, leading departments, made a lot of mistakes. I worked 100-hour weeks for close to a decade, and there's things I would do differently. And, then we went through the process of the acquisition process. So L'Oreal acquired our business for in this all cash deal in 2016 for $1.2 billion, and went through the whole exit process. And I feel like why I wrote this book, why it might feel like I'm popping up out of nowhere, because there's a lot of people that are amazing at motivation and inspiration. And I think for me, I've actually been heads down, like building a business for a decade, right? In the sense of like all the rejection, the resiliency, making lots of mistakes, and then doing lots of things right. And, I had this big realization about 2 years ago. For 5 years, I would have different lit agents approaching me to do a book. And I always said no, because they're like, we can get you a ghostwriter. And I'm like, no, I know that you can't fake authenticity. And if I ever do it, I want to pour my heart and soul into it. I want it to matter. I want it to be, everything I wish I'd known that would have saved me a lot of self-doubt, that would have saved me a lot of nights crying myself to sleep. And so I always said no to doing a book or a movie, all that stuff. And then about 2 years ago, I realized something. I realized that every single day on Instagram, I was getting messages, I was getting DMs from people saying, oh my gosh, congrats on your business and all this, but like, did you just get lucky? Or like, did you have a lot of connections? Because I'm not getting traction in my business and I'm getting rejected and I'm embarrassed to ever tell anyone about it. I'm thinking about quitting, all those things, right? And I realized, Evan, that, oh my gosh, like everything I've gone through in the past decade, but also in my whole life, if we keep it inside of us and we don't share it, like then people just see the highlight reel. And when people Google my story, they just see Denny's waitress builds $1 billion entrepreneur or builds $1 billion business, right? And then people feel alone in their own struggles and in their own setbacks and in their own, everything. And I was like, okay, I think that if I actually share all the real stories behind the stories, that maybe it'll help other people on their own journey. Be like, oh, this is what Jamie did when someone said, no one's going to buy makeup from someone who looks like you because of your body and weight. This is how she handled staring fear and rejection straight in the eye and keeping her faith bigger than it. Like, I share so many stories in here that aren't for me. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds from the book, 100% to Feeding America and to Together Rising. I literally wrote this. I wrote every single one of the 80,000 words in it because I just felt like, I think everything we all go through, when we can make it about something other than ourselves, when we can make it about something bigger than ourselves, when it can help other people, that's really where our fulfillment comes. Whether it's little things we do every day or big things like writing a book. So that's really why I wrote it. So it's so funny because you're like, you come out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing 100-hour weeks for 10 years. Like, I think it's been this crazy journey. And by the way, this started by literally, Evan, I don't know if anyone knows the story, but when I knew it was time to write the book, I knew it was time to step away from the company I built in my living room. And it was so hard. I love the team, like family, right? We built over 1,000 employees and across the country and world. And so 3 days after, it was 3 days, how many days? I don't know how many days after leaving the business, I was like, okay, I want to just do something I love. Let me go to a personal growth event. I bought tickets to Brendan Burchard's event, had never met him, and brought a couple of women I mentor. I mentor a lot of other women and friends. And I had these tickets to the event. And he had a speaker fall through a couple days before the event. And he sent a group text out to his friends. And he's like, does anyone know of a great speaker? And somebody had nominated me. And he and I ended up getting on a phone call. He's like, could you hop on stage and do an hour keynote speech? There's no script, no teleprompter, nothing. There's a few thousand people in the audience. You'll be live. Can you just hop on stage and do an hour keynote? So I'm freaking out. I don't know Brendan, right? I don't know. I'm on the phone with him. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, yep, for sure. And then inside I'm like, oh crap. Like I'm like freaking out. And then I tell him, I'm like, well, I don't know if you know this, but I already have tickets to the event. So I'm going to be there anyway. He's like, what? He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I bought tickets. I'm bringing a couple of women I mentor. We're sitting in the audience. And he's like, you're, and I'm like, it's this funniest thing, like the most serendipitous thing. And that day I hopped on, this is talking about popping up in the personal growth space, but I hopped on his stage and did an hour keynote. All of us were sobbing. Yes, that picture. So this picture, I totally forgot this, Evan, in this moment. This picture, so Simon & Schuster wanted me to do like a professional photo shoot, right? Which is what you do as an author, a proper photo shoot. I'm like, you know what if we just share a live moment real, where we're in real connection with other human beings. That day I'm talking about is so funny. You're so smart, Evan. Oh my gosh, this is why everyone gets advice from you. So this day was on his stage. I popped up live, did the hour keynote. We're all laughing, crying together in the audience, and yeah, a picture taken by Maggie Kirkland, who was there, just snapped this photo, and like, let's use a real moment. So that was really fun. Then I got off of the stage, and Brendan came over a couple of days later, met my husband and my daughter, and that was, I guess, almost 2 years ago, year and a half ago. And now I talk to Brendan every single day. And now he's one of my closest friends and amazing. And a few months ago, Tony Robbins asked me to speak at Business Mastery, and then he and I ended up doing 3 hours live together, which wasn't planned. And so that was a big full circle moment, especially going back to the Denny's days where I would save my tip money to buy his tapes. And so it's been a wild year. It might feel new, but it also kind of feels like, I think everything we do in our life, even when we don't see it in the moment, the setbacks, the hard times, the things that suck, the things that aren't fair, I feel like they're all setups in the long term for how strong we need to be and for what we're supposed to do on the next step of our journey.
I love it.
As leaders, when those hard things are going on internally, you still have to show up and lead and inspire your teams, right? And being able to do that and still feel the day was something I failed at for a number of years. Being able to do that and still summon joy was something I failed at for a number of years. And it's something, when I look back, I would do differently. It got to the point where, I was so burnt out and driving myself so hard in the business so hard that, and my husband was too, when I would get a phone call from my own husband, I actually, when I'd see his name on my cell phone, I actually would equate it in my brain to a work call. Like, that's where we got to that place. And so, for me, we had the opportunity to go public and probably would have made way more money. And I would fantasize about this idea of ringing the bell and all those sexy things. But I also realized, if I want to feel the day, live a joyful life, all of those things, become a good steward of my own body and a stronger leader for myself, for my family, and even for my own teams, I was at this point, Scott, where I had to trust myself not to trust myself, because I was so addicted to work at that point. And I knew if we went public, it would still all be on me, be on us to carry it, right? So part of why we decided to bring on a partner, right, which L'Oreal acquired 100% of our business, was to make that decision. I want to do this also joyfully. And so you don't need to sell your company to L'Oreal to have this aha moment, but I realized I was doing it wrong. I realized, and this is something that a lot of people go through this experience, where we're really amazing at our jobs or at building teams or leading teams or ideating or creating, but maybe we're not good stewards of a body. Maybe we're not good partners, or maybe we're just not even feeling the day and feeling alive and enjoying the journey. And so for me, having that epiphany was huge, because if I could do it over again, and I protected my teams, I made sure that, that they really were always inspired, that they, we did things that filled everyone else with joy. But as a leader internally, that was a journey for me to try and get to that point of realization, of celebrating the wins. And so, I have to do that intentionally now. I have to be super intentional about celebrating wins. When Believe It just made the New York Times bestseller list, that night I had so much to do. And I'm like, nope, you know what? I literally opened a half bottle of wine. I was with a friend, and we each opened a half bottle of wine. We cheers. I poured it in this coffee mug, and I'm like, I'm going to celebrate right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be so intentional about it, because before we know it, the months go by, the years go by, the decades go by, and all we ever did was work really, really well. You know what I mean?
you've done such amazing things with It Cosmetics. And I know, we've talked a little bit about it this year. We're working on, inspiring people to go after 1 million dreams together to help each other, all of that. And I think it's so easy to look at somebody like yourself and say, okay, you took something from scratch. Literally, you and your husband, Paulo, started in your living room and you eventually sold it for over $1 billion. It would be easy for people to say, oh my gosh, she probably wanted a cosmetics company when she was 2. Maybe she started when she was 5, right? But that was not necessarily the dream to start with. Tell us a little bit of how this blossomed.
Yeah, it wasn't the dream at all. And I get messages every single day, usually on Instagram, saying, did you get lucky? Did you have connections? It's like, no, none of that. And I realize so often we just see the outcomes of things when they're, or the highlight reel. And that's why I'm excited to do your show and also just to write this book. Cause I think like sharing the real journey helps everyone else when they're launching their own dream, or maybe they're scared to go after their own dream, helps them feel less alone. So yeah, one thing you've talked about in one of your shows about this idea of sometimes our setbacks become our setups.
Yes.
That's really what happened to me when I launched this dream in my living room. And just to share a little bit about that, just for anyone in your community listening right now, especially if like they're they're in the season of setback or in the midst of a setback.
Right.
That's really how this whole thing started. So I thought I was working in my dream job. And, since I was a little girl, I always would, sit in my living room and watch Oprah. And I always thought like, oh, one day I'm going to share other people's stories with the world. Like I always want to do that. And I was working in television news as a news anchor and thought I was in my dream job. And I started going through a season of setback, what I thought was a big setback. I got a skin condition called rosacea, which my skin is bright, it gets bright red with bumps everywhere. Sometimes it feels like sandpaper. And so I went to the dermatologist and I learned there's no cure for it. And I'd be anchoring the news. I tried all this stuff to try and calm it down. But I'd be anchoring the news and often live. While I'd be on the air in my earpiece, I would hear from my producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to wipe it. And I knew.
Which I'm sure totally helped you to focus and calm down, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like when we go through these times, I started this kind of season of self-doubt where I would, like, my inner critic got so loud and I would be live anchoring the news thinking things like, am I going to get fired? Am I losing our viewers, changing the channel? I went through this whole season, started trying to find any makeup product out there. I never had even an interest in going and creating a beauty company. But I started, trying every product out there and none of them would work. And I had this kind of moment where I had this kind of this gut feeling. Like, I think when dreams start to brew in us, or when there's like a seed planted in us where we have this dream, it kind of started that way where I was like, it was like a little inkling, like, wait a minute, if I could figure out how to launch it, how to create a product that works for me, I bet it'd help a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And then I would kind of like silence that dream and my head would take over. Oh, Jamie, you have no connections. You have barely any money. You don't know anything about the beauty industry. And you're in your dream job right now. Yeah. Right. And so I went through that battle. And I think everyone listening to us right now probably, like, really, if they get still, they probably know right now, if there's a dream on their heart or something they know or they're supposed to create or go after or offer the world or start painting again or start dancing, right? They kind of know. But sometimes our head talks ourselves out of our own dreams.
Yeah. So we call that essence of a dream, right? Like that, because I think sometimes even the word dream, it feels too heavy, too big. Like people are like, oh, I can't go after that dream, or I don't know all that's there or all that it will take. And it's like, all right, we'll just lean into that essence of the dream. And I love how you gave yourself that permission to first kind of look solutions for yourself, but then to be able to say, what if? What if? And I love too how it seems like very quickly after that, you also started to say, what if we did it differently? Because that was really something you started to do very early on, to be able to say, hey, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the ads around cosmetics don't seem to be all that real or for real women. And I love how that really started to become a mission for you as well. How quickly after getting the essence of the dream and starting to walk it out, was that why of being able to say, all right, this is, I'm doing this for someone else too. How soon did that happen for you?
Yeah, I realized in the midst of like, why can't I find anything that works for me? When I started trying to try all these products, I realized, oh, wow, my whole life, I've never seen anyone in the ads that looks like me, that has skin problems, right? You just see Photoshopped ads. And I kind of realized that there was never a product that works for me, but also never a product that even showed people with skin like me. And I want to say something that you said in the very open of our conversation, I think is really powerful, especially for anyone listening. You said, maybe you've never sat at the cool kids club or the cool kids table at school. Right. And I just want to say, for anyone who feels like they don't fit in, or they maybe don't belong, or they're not like everyone else, I really believe, Mitch, that can be your superpower. Because I think, like, I came into this beauty industry and I didn't fit in, and I was not. I mean, I didn't realize launching this company how it would be 3 years of being told no from all the retailers, and because everyone sees, oh, wow. Because, today at this moment that you and I are talking right now, It Cosmetics is the largest luxury makeup company in the country, which is insane. It's because amazing. For 3 years, every beauty retailer said, no, you're not the right fit. Women won't buy makeup from models that look like that. On and on and on. Change your packaging, right? And I think that why we eventually were acquired by L'Oreal for so much money is because we ended up doing something so different that, like, and unique and odd, that didn't fit in, but that people connected with, that it ended up being valuable to them. And I just think so many people listening right now, we're always told often in our lives to fit in and to conform. And sometimes when we fit in, it can actually be a disadvantage in a way, because we start thinking the same. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I don't know. Sorry, that just like came out, because I just think anyone feeling like they don't fit in, I think if you stick to who you are authentically, I really feel like that is when you step in the calling on your life, like, right? And I think, like, it's so tempting for us to, because we all want love, we all want connection, we all want those things. And it's tempting to do it at the price of who we are. Yeah. And when I look back at this journey, about turning a dream into, into something that impacted now millions of lives, I think that there were moments when people told me to change what we were doing, that was never going to work, that if I wanted to get in their stores, I had to do it the way they wanted me to do it. And those are the moments that I think could have stopped this whole thing from happening. Had I listened. You know what I mean? And I don't know, just want to share that.
Well, I love that. I love that, one, you would hone in on that, because I so agree with that. But also I think that you make that point so well in the book, of being able to take those things that maybe you've seen as your limitations or your doubts or the things that have caused you fear, that if we just look at those a little bit differently, they literally can be our superpower. And I agree with you. I think, especially with the story, and I confessed to you before we hit record that I've not worn your makeup. I'm not an expert on the cosmetic industry, all of those things. But what I love about your story, and the more that I've dug into it, it truly is, obviously you've put together an incredible product, but the way that you've gone about it and doing it differently, which I think in some ways you had to, like, bolster yourself. You had to push through those no's. Those no's made you even more, like, I don't know if it's the right word to say solid, but to be able to say, hey, we are choosing this. We are not doing this by accident. We are not doing this because it's easy. We're doing it because we feel like that's the right way to do it. And that's bolstered you to help you then navigate the storm. And I do want to say that, some people might hear this and go, oh my gosh, they went from their living room to selling it, the company to L'Oreal for $1 billion. It's like, oh, that's an overnight story. It's all those things. You guys, we're talking about hundreds of hours a week, working hard, paying yourself very little to nothing, and really fighting for this dream, which I think is also beautiful. And you've also surrounded yourself with incredible people. Now, I've gotten some questions from listeners. We're going to go after those in just a second. But one of the things is, I think what I loved about your story is that, so many things about your story, but you got the essence of the dream. You started to experiment. You saw the need. You saw the need to offer a product, but also promote that product, present that product in a different way. But I was curious, because so many people get the essence of the dream and immediately see the list of things they don't know or don't have, right? What's one of the ways, do you think, what was key for you to give yourself that permission to say, I don't have all the answers, I don't have all the connections, I certainly don't have the big bank account. What gave you, or how did you find that within yourself to be able to say, but I'm going to take that next step?
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes, and I talk about this and believe it a lot, that I think sometimes knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after one.
Yeah.
And while I was in that spot of going, okay, my gut, my essence, so to speak, is telling me to launch this company, but my head is saying you're not qualified.
Right.
You don't have the right connections, all that. When I look back, and by the way, when you talk about, the early years, it was 3 years of hundreds of no's, and we got, we couldn't afford to pay ourselves the first 3 years of our company. If we ever had a date night, which was a miracle, we would go literally to the Costco, the outdoor Costco concession stand. We get $1
absolutely.
hot dogs.
Yeah. You can get a lot for a couple of bucks at the Costco. That's exactly right.
At least, and it tastes good, which is the good part. But that would be a date night. I mean, it was really tough. And there were so many nights I cried myself to sleep because it was another big no from a retailer, or I didn't know how we were going to keep the lights on. It was a lot of years. And in the book, and believe it, I go into details about some of the scrappy things we did, like how, we figured out how to do things when we couldn't afford to hire people. And I go into that because I think it's so important, because you don't see that stuff on social media. You just see everyone's highlight reel. And I just think it's important for people that might, feel like it's just them struggling or not getting traction or hearing rejection after rejection. And when I look back at all of this, and I talk about so many things I did wrong in the book, but one of the things that I did do right, it wasn't that I somehow was smarter than someone else or anything like that. It was really that when I would get still and I would hear my own gut feeling, which for me is how I hear God talk to me, is in my intuition, right? Some people may call it the universe. Some people might call it just their own internal knowing, right? When I would hear that internal knowing, I would make the decision to trust it. And for me, that was one of the biggest things, because there were nights I literally would just cry myself to sleep. And I'd wake up in the morning thinking oh, was that huge rejection from QVC really real, or was that a dream? And then I'd realize it was real.
Very real.
And I'd
very real.
And there were some really tough rejections. About 2 years into the business, we got a call from a potential investor that was a big private equity company. And I was so excited because they had a huge track record of making all of these products in grocery stores, big household names. And they loved our product, and they wanted a meeting, and we did a meeting, and then we showed them our product pipeline. And, we were several meetings in, and I thought, wow, if they invest in us, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt, and B, maybe they can use their connections to get us in these big beauty retailers that keep telling me no. And we got down to the final meeting, and I'll never forget this moment, because my husband and I flew up for this meeting, and we were standing about 3 feet from the head investor. And he says to me, congratulations. We really, really think your product is fantastic. But it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And we want to wish you all the best. And when I said, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he was literally about 3 feet from me in person. And he says, do you want me to be really, really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. Wow. And I remember, Mitch, in that moment, here's the thing. So two things. One, I went out in the car and cried later, but I instantly felt, like a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt, all those things kind of flood my body. But I'll never forget this moment when he was saying that to me. Of course it hurt. Yeah. But when he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, I got this feeling inside, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, that just said, he's wrong. Yeah. And I actually never got mad or it was weird. When you talked about the why earlier, because we all identify, it's so important to attach a why to any dream. But I did the work early on of identifying, like, really, why am I doing this company? And it wasn't just to create a great product or to solve my own problems or to help other women, which was certainly all those things. But I wanted to shift culture in the beauty industry. I wanted to create a business where if I ever were going to make it, I wanted to use models that were all different ages and skin tones and skin and sizes and skin challenges. And I wanted to shift that definition of beauty for every little girl out there who's about to see these ads and start doubting herself the way I did growing up, and every grown woman who still does and person who still does. So I knew how important my why was to me. Yep. So when this guy says to me that, I realized, instead of getting mad, I think this is really important when we're going after our dreams, to not take rejection personally, because I realized him saying that to me, him passing on investing in my business, was really, he was just as much impacted by a life of the beauty industry as I was. Yeah. He was making an investment decision based on what he thinks you need to look like to sell product. And so, and one more thing.
I love it. No.
Well, 6 years, I didn't hear from him for about 6 years. And 6 years later, when L'Oreal acquired our company, because it was such a big deal and L'Oreal's public, they disclosed the purchase price. So all of a sudden, in this one day, it's all over the Wall Street Journal homepage, everywhere. Like, It Cosmetics, but L'Oreal buys It Cosmetics for $1.2 billion cash, this whole big thing. And I heard from him that day for the first time in 6 years. And he said, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. I was wrong, this whole thing. And I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history. But the other thing, and this is just, I want to share this in case anyone listening to you and me right now, is in this season of rejection, right? Is there's these famous words, and I don't even know who said them, but they're famous words that say, rejection is God's protection. Yeah. And when we're going through rejection, we don't, doesn't feel very good. Doesn't feel at the time, how is this protecting me? Especially when it's unfair, it's hurtful, it sucks. But and I have so many examples of this in Believe It, but the book, but just this one story is had he believed in me, Mitch, I was so desperate. I probably would have given him most of the company for almost no money. Yep. But because he didn't believe in me, 6 years later, my husband and I were still the largest shareholders when we sold to L'Oreal. And it just, I don't know. I just think that there's so many stories like that where I just think it's important that we have our perspective of faith also when we're going through those tough seasons.
Well, and I so agree, because it is that whole thing of, and I think you and I share a very similar faith, which is awesome. And we've got people from all different faith backgrounds, but it is so powerful when we start to realize that those setbacks, sometimes that adversity, although it is brutal when you're in it, I can only imagine that felt like a real punch to the gut. But think about, like you said, that adversity in some ways is something you needed to dig even deeper. In some ways, it proved your thesis even more, of saying this absolutely needs to be fixed. And if somebody's going to do it differently, we got to do it. Right. And I also, it did also protect you from then giving up a majority stake and all of those things. It's just incredible, but it's not easy. But it's amazing. And I agree with you. You have so many different examples. And I think I loved it in the book. So many different examples where that adversity, that setback, time and time again, really was a setup.
How did you get over that? And how do you help women to go, no. Don't do that to yourself. You do have something, especially in the face of so much rejection, and you kept going. It seems superhuman.
The thing that I love is that you're talking about this, right? Imposter syndrome and all of that. And I talk about a lot of, stories pertaining to that in the book as well. The very first thing that is so important for everybody listening right now is like literally everybody has it. I've never met a person who doesn't have it. Everybody has it, right? And so it's like, okay, that's the first thing. Because once we know that, we're like, oh, this person I watch on television every day has it. Oh, like everybody has it. And that, right, just wrapping our heads around that is really empowering, because it's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. It's normal. I feel unqualified. I feel all those things, right? Everybody has it. The second thing is, I do a lot of things when I start to feel it. Like I've built this, I talk about a little bit about this in the book, where I built kind of this own imaginary toolbox that I pull from when I catch myself going there. You know what I mean? And there's things I tell myself. One of them is, I'm trying to remember this part isn't in the book, but I'm just going to share it. I feel like it was Steve Jobs. I don't remember who said this, but one person shared this quote that was so powerful, and it's always stuck with me. They basically said, every single thing that's ever been built or created or done in the world was created by someone just like you and me. And when you think about it, it's true. Mm-hmm. It's all true. And I think about that. I write so many things. For me, when you see my circle of friends, they're all different faiths. Some of them have no faith. But their hearts are huge, right? So I love having powerful people around me that remind me of who I am and help talk me out of my BS when I start, like, oh, I don't know if I can do. But for me also, I keep a lot of empowering statements around me that I pull from. And, one of them that's huge for me, because faith is a big deal to me, although I think this applies to anybody, no matter what their faith. But, there's a famous saying that really fills my soul when I start to feel imposter syndrome or doubt myself or feel like I don't have what it takes or like I'm not qualified, right? How many times do we feel like we're not qualified? And these famous words say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And for me, I feel like when we have when we have a knowing in our gut, right? And we can't shake it, right? I feel like that's part of your calling or your purpose in life. And I think we can have multiple of those. But when you have it, for me, I kept feeling this calling, like I was supposed to create this dream, launch this dream, and I was supposed to do whatever I can to shift culture in the beauty industry. I just kept feeling it. And during all these years of no's, because when we finally created this product, and by the way, I mean, I just thought, as an entrepreneur, like so many people will relate to this. You're like, okay, this product is amazing. Finally, yes, it's just going to do well, right? Oh my gosh. The first 3 years, I couldn't even afford to pay myself, right? And every retailer we sent the product to either said no or never replied. Every meeting I got in person when I thought I was going to crush it and kill it. I remember this first big Sephora meeting I had, and I literally left the building, going down the elevator, walking as fast as I could to get out the door. This is in downtown San Francisco. And I could barely afford the plane ticket to get there. And it was a big no. And I was so devastated. I was trying, because the elevator ride down from this big no was filled with people that I'm guessing worked at Sephora. And I'm like, I'm a CEO. I cannot cry. I got to hold my shit together. I've got to make it. And I remember getting out of the elevator, rushing out the side of the building on Market Street and like pushing myself against this brick wall next to a fast food restaurant and just sobbing as hard as I could. It was no after no. QVC, I remember years of no. And I finally got the head guy, Alan Burke, who is responsible for building this $1 billion empire on QVC. And he got all these luxury brands from department stores to want to sell on QVC, and they still do. And he's just a genius. And I remember finally getting him on the phone.
And I remember pacing in the office, like so nervous because I needed a yes. And well, I should say pacing in our office, AKA the living room, because right. And he got on the phone and he's like, we've reviewed your products with all of our buyers. It's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I was so devastated because with my mission of wanting to shift culture around beauty, I just knew, oh my gosh, if I can get on QVC, it's not like a Photoshop magazine. It is live. It is live television to 100 million homes. And I could prove how my product works live. And I could show models of that represented every different type of and size and age and skin color and skin tone. And I just knew in my gut, right? I knew in my gut when we check in with our purpose, with our calling, with our mission, I knew that I was supposed to be on QVC. And to finally get this big call from the head of all of it, Alan Burke, telling me I'm not the right fit and we're not the right fit for QVC or their customers. It's devastating when people tell you you're not the right fit. And when people that you are so tempted to put on a pedestal because they're experts and they've created incredible things and they're known as visionaries. When touted visionaries are telling you one thing and your gut is telling you another, it's hard to keep going. It's also hard to feel like, well, wait, what if my gut is wrong? And what if I'm not enough? And what if I'm, like he said, not the right fit? And what if I'm not qualified? And here's the thing is, fast forward, a long time later, when we finally got one shot on QVC, we finally got a yes from a buyer, not from Alan Burke. We finally got a yes, and we got one shot, which came down to 10 minutes. And we would I knew, and here's the thing, Kathy, is at the time, and this was a little over 3 years into our business. So at the time, we were still selling like 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely keeping the lights on. And QVC needed us to manufacture, pay for, and ship in over 6,000 units of our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer in order to sell in a 10-minute window to hit their sales target or not come back. And the biggest thing that was on the line was that in beauty, it was a consignment deal, which meant we had to pay for all of it, make it, ship it in, and we only got paid for what sold. So and as an entrepreneur, you know this, everyone listening knows this, like never take a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But in this case, we had nothing. This was our last chance at like not going out of business. And it was a big yes. And we decided to kind of risk it all. We applied for SBA loans to cover the cost of making the 6,000 units. 22 banks said no. It was bank number 23. They gave us enough money just to cover the purchase order in an SBA loan. So we had one shot on QVC and we had to sell, right? We had to hit their sales target, dollars per minute and not come back. When we got the one shot, I flew out there. I was there a week before. I went out a week before this airing and I sat in a rental car in the parking lot right out front every day. And I just sat there because it felt so heavy and so big. And I remembered, you talk about Oprah, actually. By the way, Oprah was the very first person to read the book cover to cover because I wanted her blessing on the parts I included about her. Otherwise, I would have never included. Of course,
you had that stories. Epic piece of this whole puzzle. My God,
it's a crazy story. And I got her blessing at the very end of the book. I shared. Okay. When you talk about I've never, not to be off track, but I've never shared all the real story behind the story of everything. So this book is the first time, including all the personal stuff. But anyhow, I sat in that parking lot staring at the front door of QVC. And I remembered this Oprah episode where she talked about the color purple and how she was so obsessed with it that it felt like it was too much for her to carry anymore because she wanted it so bad. And someone had told her, oh, real actresses are up for the part. And right. And so she told the story of just going to a retreat where she was running the track in circles and singing I Surrender All and asking God to take it from her. And then Steven Spielberg called. And anyways, so I remembered this episode. Anyone who's seen that episode will remember. But I literally channeled that. I'm sitting in this car in the parking lot. I started singing I Surrender All because it felt too heavy for me to carry. It felt like the next time I walk through these doors,
at QVC, I'm either going to walk back out of business, or with my whole life changed. It was one or the other, because we had one shot. And if you do not hit the sales goal, you don't come back. And the hardest thing, and I talk a lot about learning how to tune in and trust our own gut and trust ourselves, even when everyone else is saying something different. And this was probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my career and life, was in this moment as it pertains to trusting my gut, because we had one shot. And what we did is we hired these third-party consultants, and they helped so many people sell their products so well on television and other channels as well. And when we met with them, they all said the same thing to me, which is, okay, if you want a chance at doing well, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were just like the ones I had seen in magazines for years. And, you need to produce yourself this way. And I would say to them, okay, but what if I'm sitting at home and I have rosacea? Exactly. And what if I'm, 75 years old and I have hyperpigmentation? How is anyone going to know this product works for them if they don't see someone using it who looks like them? And, we would fight about it. And these experts wanted the best for me. They wanted me to win, but they were just telling me what they knew. Right. And this is so important, is so many times experts, visionaries, etc., you can never take it personally when they don't believe in your dream or think you have what it takes, because no matter how visionary they are, typically they still only will believe something will be successful if they've already seen it successful before. So if you're doing something new or novel or different, or you're going to put your own take on it, they're not going to realize they're doing this, but they're likely not going to think it's going to work, because subconsciously they've never seen it work before. And so I'm sitting there knowing I have one shot on TV, and knowing the experts are telling me use these type of models. And yet my gut instinct, my why, my authenticity, right? My authentic reason for launching this business is to not use that type of, to use every type of model, right? And it's really hard in these decisions in life when your experts are telling you one thing, your gut's telling you another. And we had one shot. And I just remember this moment sitting in that car, singing I Surrender All, crying. And I just remember thinking of, who is this woman that's going to be watching me? If I have the blessing of her spending her precious time turning her television on and seeing me, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not even going to focus on, let me sell as much as I can. What do I want to stand for? And I just remember having this moment hit me where I imagine so many different types of women. And one of them that always stands out in my head when I think back to this memory is I imagine a single mom folding laundry in Nebraska who literally doesn't even have time to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful. And I would rather have her look up on her TV and even not buy anything and see me showing women that look like her and stand for that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. And I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy. And when the live show happened and the countdown clock at 10 minutes started, and it was 9:59, 9:58, 9:50. And I'm like, oh shit. But you can't try to sell and you can't look freaked out, or nothing will sell either. And I just remember literally pouring everything I had on the air. And I remember the moment my bare face came up on national television, my bright red cheeks. And I remember going to all the different models that looked like, real people. And I'll never forget, it was I was shaking like a leaf. Oh my gosh. And then the whole cell, because everything was on the line. And then I remember right toward the end, the host was the deep shade is down to 200. The tan shade is almost, and I was like, what? Oh shit. Oh. And then I remember all of a sudden at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up, and I literally tears streamed down my face. I remember my husband rushed through the double doors of the studio, and I looked at him, and they cut the live show, and boom, they're on to the next sell of the next product. I looked at him and I'm sobbing, and I'm real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And it was like this whole like thing. And that one show turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year, 151 the next year. And then we've done 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years in a row, and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this moment, to this day. And the only reason I share that is for every person listening. It was 3 years of no from QVC. It was Alan Burke saying, you are not the right fit for our customers or for QVC. And we finally did get a shot. And so 2 things about that. And by the way, oh my gosh. So by the way, okay, I love, for everyone listening, like literally no one can tell you are not the right fit, right? Like nobody can tell you that. And I feel in life, our own calling is always stronger than any opposition. Sometimes it feels like our opposition is huge, but your opposition cannot compete with your calling. And what it comes down to is which one you decide to listen to, right?
So good.
And like, so this part, so fast forward, we're on QVC now, doing really, really well. And Alan Burke ends up, I get to know him. He's freaking a genius. He became our biggest champion, our biggest cheerleader. He's to this day right now one of my closest mentors in my life. So awesome. And then he retired from QVC after like a million years there. I don't know how many decades, but he retired. And we ended up hiring him on our advisory board in a paid position. And it was this moment where I realized, Kathy, like, oh, the guy who rejected me is now working for me, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, like nobody can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not the right fit. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. I didn't take it personally when he said no, right? Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot of rejections. You know, I talk about the investor who told me they wouldn't invest in someone because they wouldn't invest in our company because they didn't think women would buy makeup from someone who looked like me with my body and weight. Like I've had every type of rejection, and it's so easy for us because we're human to take these personally, right? And it wasn't that I wasn't hurt. It wasn't any of that. But professionally, I always made sure to not take it personally. I always made sure to treat it always as like, oh, this will be a yes one day. And then I'll decide if I want to partner with them, but it will be a yes. And I always had that attitude. And so with Alan, even after that tough no happened, Alan Burke at QVC, I still nurtured that relationship. And I still said, it's going to be a yes one day and all those things. And here's what I'll say, you guys, is, you know, I believe, and you, for everyone, it's different. For some people, it's God. For some people, it's a universe. For some people, it's love. I believe in perfect timing, even when it doesn't feel so perfect to us. And what I'll say about that is like, what I learned many years later is had Alan Burke said yes when I wanted him to, we would have failed miserably because I didn't know what I didn't know. And we were not operationally sophisticated enough to handle the back end of the business of an account the size of QVC. Wow. I just didn't know it. And sometimes our hardest no's and our hardest no's in life are actually like serendipitous grace. Yeah, like totally wrapped in this package labeled painful rejection. Yep. And anyways, it was a big thing. God. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I'm like live off the cuff with you, and I love it so much. But you asked something, and I just realized I forgot to answer it. Yeah. No, but you asked for people that think their idea has already been done, or they asked for right. One thing I want to share about that. I'm getting hyper right now because this is like, oh my gosh, so I talk about this lesson so much in the book because I wish I had learned this earlier. I wish I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. If so many people talk themselves out of their dream, they talk themselves out of their truth because exactly what you said, they're like, oh, that person's doing so well with this idea already on social media. And this person did really well. And this person, oh no, here's the deal. Nobody, I don't even care how many, there was millions of makeup brands out there when we launched a makeup company. Please don't ever think that because your idea has already been done, that it impacts your ability to do it and succeed. It just doesn't. And when you look at all of the researchers that research authenticity and all of that, they talk about how
it's impossible to have an authentic connection with another human being, a real connection, unless you show up authentically, right? If you show up as your representative or who you think the person wants you to be or whatever, you'll never have an authentic connection, which also can mean with your customers, because your customers are a relationship too, right? And with that said, as long as you show up fully, authentically who you are, it doesn't matter your idea's already been done. No one can do it the way you're going to do it. Like nobody can share it, express it, communicate it, create it the way you're going to do it. And so it's literally, as long as you're authentic and that through line of authenticity is in you, it's impossible for anyone else to have done your idea because they can't do it like you. It's impossible. And I just think that is so important. And I'll also say that because I've done now over 1,000 live shows on QVC myself. And the one thing that happens is you're there all hours of the day and night, because you might have a show at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. The fun part of it, and the hours were very hard. I did it for 8 years. I spent almost every holiday in the QVC green room and all those things, which it was the biggest blessing. It allowed people to become aware of It Cosmetics, and we couldn't afford advertising at the time or anything. So it was the biggest gift. But one of the things that I loved most about it was that in the green room, even when you're stressed out in the green room at QVC, you get to meet so many other founders of companies, right? And you all end up bonding and all the things, the good, the bad. So not everyone's nice, but you meet a lot of people. And the through line, talking about authenticity, is when I look back at doing over 1,000 shows on QVC, one commonality between the people who make it and the people who don't, because most people go to QVC and they're on air one time, a couple times, and they're gone, right? Mm-hmm. And when I go, why is it some people make it and some people don't? It's never their personality type. It's actually, I wish I could say it was, but it's never even if they're nice. It's like the one thing that I saw is the people who are the same on air, the people who are the same on air as they are off air, they're the people who last. Right? Sometimes they're quirky and they're this and they're that and they're wild and you're like, they're crazy. And then they're that same way on air selling their product. They last because you can't fake authenticity. And viewers are smart, customers are smart, and they sense it, and they can't connect with you unless you're the same. Your heart is open and you're the freaking same. And the people that are even really great, awesome people, like good hearts in the green room, then they go on air and they're all of a sudden the professional representative that they think they're supposed to be, or they're really cool and funky because they think they're supposed to be, but that's not really who they are. They never last. And I feel like when people get this, it's freedom in so many ways, because it's so easy, especially in a social media world, to get distracted and compare ourselves and go, oh, this is working for so-and-so. Maybe I should do more of that. It's like, oh no. That's when you start to chip away at your own secret sauce and your own potential.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.